We're going to do a test here. I'm actually on a cruise. Don't know if this is going to work out. Let's see if we can make it work. Let's see if we can get here to show you some views as we're pulling out of port. We're going to talk a little bit about cryptocurrency, what's going on in this space. Enjoying a cigar here on my cruise. Finishing up a cigar. Don't know if you guys can hear me. Let me know if you can how the volume is. Don't know if this is going to work, how the stream is doing. Let me know if you can hear me okay, if the stream's coming through okay. I'm not sure how my internet's going to do here. We're pulling out of Juneau, Alaska right now. I think it's currently about 9 o'clock Alaska time. Maybe 10 o'clock. Can you hear? Thanks, SSU. Appreciate it. Is the stream doing all right for you? Is it breaking up? We got our little Alaskan cruise action. I'm looking out the window right now, so you see a little bit of reflections. Oh, check it out. A little tugboat going by. Is the stream holding up okay? Let me know if the stream's holding up all right. If it's breaking up for you, just let me know. Right. I can hear you all right. Let's see. Video once in a while buffer, but still okay. Hey, appreciate it, man. SSU, appreciate it. Sounds like it's primarily near you. There's a couple more here. If you don't mind, hit that thumbs up. Let's talk a little bit. It's kind of, I know it's late for the U.S. time because I'm over here in Alaska and it's getting later. It's still light, by the way, in Alaska, if you're wondering. We only got about 4 or 5 hours of, about 5 to 6 hours of dark, which is kind of crazy. That's one of the coolest things about this trip so far. Hey, I'll give you some more, see if I can give you a better view. We're going to talk about, but anyway, it's Satoshi. I guess the government basically told him put up or shut up. What a moron. Can we talk about that? I know, man, it's our hustle. It is crazy. It is so crazy. It's ridiculously crazy. So, Craig Wright, let's talk about this guy for a minute. I got a lot of things I want to talk about tonight, but I may keep this short because I don't know how the video quality is going to do. I mean, I do have an internet package and everything, and it's pretty solid. But one of the issues is, even with the internet package on an Alaskan cruise, because of where you position on the globe, the internet can be a little bit shaky. Cruising's changed a lot, man. Used to on a cruise, you couldn't get internet at all. Just enjoying a cigar here. So let's talk about this for a minute. Craig Wright. I just want to talk about the implications of this. Craig Wright is claiming he's Satoshi. That guy has to be an absolute moron. Now, I know that some people actually think that he is Satoshi, but the guy has to be an absolute moron, because if I always think, what does he think the end of that is? Does he think like the cryptocurrency space would one day welcome him with open arms? And does he ever consider what the American government, or not even the American government, what other governments around the world would do if they actually believed that he was indeed Satoshi Nakamoto? Like, I mean, could you only imagine? And I don't know if he even thinks that through. I don't even know if he cares. And I think maybe he knows that he's being ridiculous and he's just fighting to stay relevant. I would love to know what you think. Do you think that Craig Wright actually thinks he's going to convince the world that he's Satoshi Nakamoto, or do you think he's just trying to, yeah, that's exactly why I side of hustle, just trying to stay relevant, grab publicity. That's my thought on it as well. Because the guy's got to be, I mean, he acts insane, but he's got to be smart enough to know that if the world actually thought that he's legit Satoshi, if the world actually, if he actually was legitimately Satoshi, then the idea of what would happen to that guy, meaning, and when I say what would happen, I mean from a legal standpoint, from a government regulatory standpoint, what would happen if he was indeed Satoshi? I don't even know if the guy has thought that through. I don't know if he even cares. But you know, one of the things that just showing you some more views here. That's actually the town. Oh, never mind. We left the town in Juneau. Paying attention. I don't think. I even want. Let me see if I can zoom in. I don't know if I can do that on here. I can't. That's a shame. I don't know if he even thinks about the implications. Meaning, like, okay, so here's the thing about crypto that blows my mind. A lot of times, people in crypto clamor for regulation, have all these scams. Well, what else do you think is going to happen in the crypto space? How are you not going to have? You will always have scams of some sort in crypto, unless you want government regulation. But if you want government regulation, then you have to ask yourself, well, what's the point in crypto? By the way, there's some. I don't know if you can see that. If there's some snow on the mountain up there. But what's the point in cryptocurrency? What's the point in having a decentralized cryptocurrency if you want government interference, government regulations, centralized control? I mean, the single big I think from as far as mass adoption is for those of us to realize that you're never going to have the protections or the protectionist the feeling of being protected is you're never gonna be able to stop someone from stealing your crypto, and you're never gonna prevent people from being stupid. If you, for example, here's what I mean. You look at these Bitcoin generators, and hopefully none of you have ever fell for that, but the little generators out there, it's like, hey, just send us one Bitcoin, and we'll send you back 1.2 Bitcoin, in 30 minutes or less. Yeah, right. That's never gonna happen. But if you think you're ever gonna stop that, then you almost got to. I think, in my opinion, and let me know what you think, I think you almost got to have a centralized government in place, and I don't know how you can put regulations in place to be able to stop that. Big Smoke Crypto, welcome. Exactly, Big Smoke Crypto. It's like everybody wants to turn cryptocurrency into exactly what it's not supposed to be. And that is, the SEC's got to fund it. You've got to get, some form of law enforcement in place. And I'm not saying that if you could prove that blatant theft occurred, then I'm not saying that there shouldn't be some sort of government agency taking action. But how are you ever going to prove? How are you ever going to prove exactly side hustle? Side hustle to win says it's only a matter of time before they want their cut. That's exactly right. And it's only a matter of time before cryptocurrency becomes exactly what you never wanted anyway. It's a matter of time before cryptocurrency is nothing more than simply a digital currency with no blockchain. I mean, governments all over the place would love to just have digital fiat currency, which would allow would allow currency to be manipulated even more. But we live in a society where people basically want a king. People want to be protected. They want someone. They don't want to be independent. They don't want to be responsible for their own crypto security. They want someone else to ensure their own cryptocurrency, their own crypto security. And I think until we get to a place where people are willing to say, you know what, I don't care, I'll take care of my own cryptocurrency. Why didn't we get into this space to be controlled? You know what, Big Smoke? That's exactly Big Smoke said. We didn't get into space to be controlled. I agree with that. Bull Run said they will get it with BSV is regulatory. It's regulatory compliant, private but not anonymous. I think you're talking about Bitcoin SV. Is that what you mean? BSV. They will get it with BSV. It's regulatory compliant, private but not anonymous. Here's the thing, though. If you don't have the ability now, see, here's where this is where it gets complicated. I think ultimately in the long run, Bitcoin cryptocurrency will need to be anonymous, private and anonymous. There's a difference. I think in the long run it will need to be private and anonymous, because see, you can't have private and not anonymous when it comes to regulations. Because if it's fully private, and it's not anonymous, then is it really private? If it's not fully private, then that means someone else can control it. Someone else can create rules and regulations about what you can do with it, what you can do with it. And then again, we start getting back to the exact same place all over again. At least, in my opinion, I'm all about being as free and open as possible. And I would make the argument that ultimately, long term, you need to have cryptocurrency needs to be able to be anonymous long term. You've got to be able to transact in such a way that no one can agree or disagree to an extent that they can control what you're doing or stop you from doing what you want to do with your own cryptocurrency. Listen, if you are crazy enough to join some sort of Ponzi scheme, so be it. And if you want to, if you can't figure out that it's a Ponzi scheme, and you're going to hop on board, or you're going to get into an investment that is so risky. And by the way, let me just say this. There are plenty of investments out there. If you, I agree with you, Big Smoke. but I believe that breeds illegal activity. There's no way around it. Who's going to determine? Bullrun, let me ask you, who's going to determine that something's legal or not legal? I mean, it's not legal right now for you to for you to be able to invest in a hedge fund. Why? Why? The reality is because at the very root of the issue, it's because government says that, I'm assuming that you're not a multimillionaire to be able to invest in a hedge fund, but based on your statistics, that could be wrong. You could be one of 7 people here, and you could be the one multimillionaire Bull Run. But in reality, chances are you aren't. So government says you can't participate in hedge funds because you're not, as a sophisticated investor, or whatever the proper term is. Basically, you're not smart enough. You don't have enough money to be able to. You haven't, by hook, crook, nook, and sheer intelligence, been brilliant enough to be able to make decisions what to do with your own money. So the government's going to protect you, and you're not going to be able to take advantage of some of the highest risk, and at the same time, some honest people. I think the biggest issue in cryptocurrency is there's a lot of people getting involved because they're just looking to make a quick buck. They don't even understand the fundamentals on why it should be profitable or why it could be profitable. Hey, fellas, if you don't mind, do me a favor, hit that like button. I know it's late over on the East Coast and even on the Midwest and the Pacific time, but do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button. Let's get some other people joining this conversation because I want to keep going here with this. I'm seeing some YouTubers talking about now's the time for cryptocurrency. That's why the prices are going up. Appreciate it, Bull Run. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it, fellas. Man, all of you all at once just hit the thumbs up. Man, I appreciate that. Wow. Thank you, Side Hustle to Win. I appreciate that, fellas. Druggies pull money out of ATMs every day. That's right. When you talk about, okay, so see, here we go again. When you talk about, people say, it's absolute, sorry, my brain is going in about 4 different ways, and I don't know where I want to go with this because I get so passionate about this topic. Most people hear things in the news media and they just take it for face value, and most of the time the news is one perspective. It's just one perspective. And so what ends up happening is you hear things like, oh, cryptocurrency, because it's anonymous, people use it for illegal activity. Well, the U.S. dollar has been used for more illegal activity than practically any other currency ever, period. The 1% have something up their sleeve. They want to sit back and they will not sit back and just watch. That's true, George. The 1% of the 1%, listen, I could go down that bunny trail as well, but let me just back up. The U.S. dollar has been used for more money laundering, more illicit activity. I mean, heck, think about it. When Pablo Escobar, one of the wealthiest drug kingpin cartel, the Escobar. I mean, when you go look up that guy, think about this. That guy spent $2,500 a month on rubber bands to hold his cash. When he got killed, 90%, the murder rate dropped by 90% in Colombia. So you think about this guy. There's a story about Pablo Escobar talking about he spent $1 million, burned it at one point in time to keep his one of his kids, his baby, warm or something. I mean, that's insanity. The amount of money, and by the way, what was all that money? Every bit of it was U.S. dollars. U.S. dollars. So, I mean, when I hear that the whole thing about, well, when you look at privacy coins like Monero or even, Bitcoin, it's all used for, illicit activities. Yeah, okay. Every financial instrument on the planet will be used for illicit activities at some point or another if it has enough mainstream and enough mass adoption. Whether that's the euro or the U.S. dollar or the Swiss franc or, the pebbles on the beach. There was probably some sort of Ponzi scheme being conducted with tulips during the tulip bulb mania or whatever way back when. So that part doesn't actually matter. Global coin, legalized money laundering. Don't trade your Bitcoin for Zug bucks. Yeah, there you go. Oh my goodness. See, so everybody's rushing towards things like this whole Facebook coin, and mainly it's fine for a speculative, profitable play, but the fundamentals for something like that are radically different. It's just radically different. Cryptocurrency as a whole is about decentralization. It's about being able to do what you want to with your crypto. So let's keep this going. The government is won't adopt a privacy coin. It would have to be regulatory compliant, and like I said, private but not anonymous. Yeah, but you understand Bitcoin's all about that governments won't adopt it anyway. You do understand that, right, Bull Run? I mean, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin will get, the only way that anyone will ever adopt a cryptocurrency as far as the government is that the people will have an economic rebellion to the extent that it will go to the point that they won't want to use something. We'll have to get to the place that there is a entire way of thinking that will shift. And okay. For example, with Venezuela, people won't use the petrodollar because they don't trust it, because the government has done such a poor job with the petrodollar. So people won't trust it. You have to get to the point, and I believe that we could see that time in our life. If you've ever watched my video on my channel where I talk about Bitcoin going to 1 million, meaning 1 million US dollars in today's buying power. So Bitcoin being worth $1 million. I believe that Bitcoin could be worth $1 million one day, and you'd have to go watch that video to get the full details of that. But in order to get to that place, you would have to get to a place where the average citizens have ultimately lost all faith of their government to be able to manage an economic solution. And then governments would start accepting cryptocurrency as a main instrument of payment, or main instrument, or they would almost be forced to adopt it. If adoption is even, I challenge you to play devil's advocate and look into Bitcoin as to be the real Bitcoin vision. Bull run, no, not going to happen. Challenge denied. I'm just not going to do that. The issue is going to be the issue. The issue is we're a long ways from getting to a place that the mentality is such that people don't want government regulations, which is wild to me, because that's the true unique. That's the thing that makes Bitcoin valuable, is that it can exist without government interference. Yet people clamor and want some sort of government interference or government regulations. So that's where we're at with that, and that's kind of my thought on it. I continue to watch it. I think, Bitcoin going up, I think it's just a wave. Do I think Bitcoin's going to keep going up? Well, I mean, it's going to pull back at some point. I don't think we're headed towards mass adoption, if that's what you're talking about. I mean, Bitcoin, oh, by the way, check this out. I don't know if you can see that over there. There's some cool, that's some cool scenery. We're cruising out of Alaska, by the way, headed over to, was it Saskatchewan or something like that? I don't know if you can see that. It's kind of crazy. So I don't know that, we're a long ways from Bitcoin mass adoption, cryptocurrency mass adoption. That's the bottom line. But I just find it frustrating that people who, claim to be pro cryptocurrency are also pro government. I don't even know how that happens. So let's talk about something else here. I want to talk about from some of the DApp space in general. So, because some of this overlaps. The DApp space, I like talking about the DApp space because I think it's a very unique sort of a space. It is obviously a chance to be able to profit in some ways with some of these DApp programs that are out there. Alaska looks beautiful. Late here in Cali, yep. I'm out. Enjoy, brother. Thank you, Nate. Appreciate you being here. Always love hearing your thoughts on keeping the little guy strong in knowledge. Thank you, Nate. I appreciate it. Side Hustle said Italy's already going down that path. They're taxing people's stuff in safe deposit box. Get out of here. It's going to drive people and instruments away from government regulations. Exactly, Side Hustle. Exactly. Exactly. Hey, Bull Run. Let me just say this. I'm not mad ignorant, bro. I mean, we have different ideas and different philosophies. I love that you have an idea that's an independent thought process. The challenge is it's not personal. I mean, cryptocurrencies, people always want to get ridiculous. They want to get personal. I don't care enough to look into Bitcoin SV. I don't, I just not going there. I don't think they offer enough yet. And what I've seen, I looked at them at first when they launched, and I thought, I just don't get it. That's like Bitcoin Hex. Looked at that briefly, and I thought, you know what? God bless what's his face. He's just looking to turn a profit in some way, and he's going to successfully turn a profit in some way. I have no doubt. Do I think that Bitcoin Hex is going to take over the world? No, not at all. I mean, I just don't. I just don't. But let's shift gears here a minute. Let's talk about this DApp space. DApp space is very fascinating right now. This thing. Good job, Bull Run. Awesome. Listen, that's why I'm up 300%. Being up 300% in cryptocurrency is nothing. That's why there's so many people in this space, because those sort of gains are possible in the short term. But ultimately, it's about what's going to take place long term. I don't think any cryptocurrency that bows down to government regulations is ultimately what we're looking for. Now, there's probably going to have to be some sort of a middle ground in the process, and what I mean by that is there's got to be some way to be accepting of regulations. Tron. Big smoke. I'm only freezing my Tron, not playing any dApps right now. I get it. we will go through a path of here's where I see mass adoption taking place. I will see governments attempting to regulate it, and I will see companies agreeing to regulations. And when I say what I mean by that is agreeing to reporting. Companies are going to report what they can report, especially as long as they're not private transactions. I believe that companies will have to report what they can report. Companies will choose to pay taxes on their cryptocurrency gains in U.S. dollar values, just like they do. Most companies who accept cryptocurrency are not holding that cryptocurrency. Most of them are settling in dollars or some sort of fiat, and then paying taxes on it. I believe that that's going to have to. That's what I mean when I say some sort of regulation. That sort of stuff's going to have to continue, and hopefully, though, this whole cryptocurrency movement doesn't get co-opted by something like a petrodollar or a, Facebook, cryptocurrency, or one day a U.S. government-backed cryptocurrency. How can they regulate something that they have no idea about what it is? Well, Big Smoke, they can always put the onus of regulation, which is what they're going to do on small businesses and merchants. Small businesses and merchants don't have the wiggle room, so they're going to be able to, when you it's just like the know your customer sort of thing. You can trade Bitcoin, kind of OTC over the counter, but when you start doing a lot of transactions in Bitcoin with businesses, there's a level of freedom there still. There's a level of, it's a lot harder to control. People can't confiscate, the U.S. government can't freeze your Bitcoin, or it's very difficult to try to confiscate it in any way, shape, or form. But you're still going to have to, based off who you transact with, for example, merchant services. If you use any sort of merchant, those platforms are going to be available for some form of auditing. So you're going to have to, if you're a business, and most businesses are going to comply with that, you're going to have to be able to comply with some sort of transactional regulation. Now, with that being said, that doesn't bother me so much, because long term, when the customer base is big enough that they don't care, whoever was talking about, who was it talking about? Was it Big Smoke? Was it Big? Who was it talking about? Italy, side hustle. Italy's they're starting to tax people's safe deposit box. Most people in the U.S. don't realize this, but someone told me that in the U.S. you have 401ks. I'll give you an example of where people start to rebel a little bit. The U.S. has 401ks, but there's private retirement plans in Europe. The way it was explained to me, in the U.S. you can have a 401k. You can withdraw with penalty from that 401k. You can borrow against that 401k. You have to pay it back and whatnot, but you don't have to. You can still get access. You still get some sort of access to your 401k. In Europe, you have private savings accounts or private retirement accounts, but you can't get access to them at all. You can't borrow against them. You can't withdraw without penalty. The way it was explained to me is it's essentially like an American Social Security account, except you have an account, it's your money, but once you put in that account, you literally have no way, shape, or form to touch it or access it, if I understood properly, until retirement. By the way, the boat's stopped right now. I think we're starting to turn or something. But you basically have no access to your funds. People don't like that. In the U.S., we're not at that point yet. We could be moving to that point. And the reason, by the way, that people do that, so again, the reason people are willing to say, okay, I want the government to protect, my savings account or my retirement account. It's okay that I don't get access to it because it protects society, the average citizen, from withdrawing their savings. And as long as they withdraw their savings, in other words, it prevents them from spending their retirement account, is what it does. My take on that is, who cares if you spend your retirement account? It's your retirement account. Figure it out. I don't think the solution, by the way, I can't zoom in out. The snow caps on those mountains are far closer than I'm showing it on YouTube. That looks incredible. It looks incredible. So let me shift gears here and finish up with this. The government always take more control or decrease your rights when it all in the name of protectionism, keeping you secure, preventing you as a citizen from hurting yourself in the future. And that's the kind of mentality that we ultimately have to get away from. And I think things like taxing safe deposit box like they're doing in Italy, that sort of thing, causes people to be like, no, that's, I don't want you to do that. That's a bit overreach. And then government becoming irresponsible, for example, like in in Venezuela, for example. If you look at the history of Venezuela, it's very fascinating. And it was Chavez, I believe, that put all these social programs in place. He could provide health care, he could provide education, and he did a pretty decent job because they were making so much money on oil. But then when the price of oil drops, and then, it started from, Chavez to Maduro, the price of oil drops, and all of a sudden you can't pay for all these services that you promised. And now you've got a real problem. And the solution is basically to start inflating your currency, print more of it, print more of it. And that kills everybody's savings. All the older people, anyone who saved any money, their money's not worth anything, and eventually it kills everybody because you can't make enough money to keep up with inflation. But that gets a little bit more broader than this scope. People don't notice that a value meal costs $10 now. Same food, but because the government just prints money, it's going down in value. And that's right, Big Smoke. People don't realize that. George says University of Cyprus starting blockchain studies and accepting Bitcoin as payment. Yeah, that's right, but they're doing the same thing I just explained. They're ultimately settling in some form of fiat. I promise you, the University of Cyprus is abiding by government regulations with their government. They may be accepting cryptocurrency payments, but they're not like avoiding taxes or whatever. And I'm not saying that they should. I'm just saying I think ultimately we're going to get to a place where governments are going to prove to be so irresponsible with the funds that the citizens have paid them in the form of taxes or whatnot that they don't want any more of their freedoms taken. All right, so let's go. I want to talk a little bit about the DApp space, for example. The DApp space is very, very fascinating, and I think many of you have been in the DApp space. You've been a part of projects, whether it's some sort of cryptocurrency casino, which is what most of DApps are right now. There are other uses for DApps, but I encourage you to continue to watch this space, continue to pay attention, because there's a lot taking place in the DApp space. There's a lot of things happening in the DApp space. And I believe that we're going to see a lot of development in the DApp space. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm a fan of Tron and Ethereum because of DApps. But a lot of people say things like, oh, one day, Tron's going to take over Bitcoin, or one day Ethereum's going to take over Bitcoin. Maybe in the short term, but I personally don't think a DApp coin or a DApp token is ever going to mean a platform. I don't think that's ever going to be the main cryptocurrency that people transact in. I can see how it could happen. Bitcoin would be. Bitcoin is interesting. I don't know enough about it. I've just read about it a little bit. Big Smoke. Big Smoke is big. Bitcoin will be big. It is interesting. But here's and I should actually do a whole video on Bitcoin at some point in the future. But the DApp space, what they're doing, when you talk about creating projects that can operate games, that can operate on the blockchain in some form, this is in its infancy. I was talking to a guy who walked up here a minute ago when I started smoking a cigar, and he was wearing a shirt that said it was like I can't even remember, it was a Blockbuster shirt, but it was like an old employee Blockbuster shirt. He said he actually got it at Target, but it looked like an old T-shirt that a Blockbuster employee. Many of you who can remember Blockbuster, man, those are the good old days when you actually went in and picked up a movie or a video. But Blockbuster back then, when Blockbuster came out, they were like the Walmart of movies, videos. People thought Blockbuster was going to put out every mom and pop video store around, and they did for a while. But within a decade to less than 2 decades, all of a sudden they're on a massive decline. And now they're essentially, they are non-existent, I believe. I don't know if there's any Blockbusters left, but they're practically non-existent. And now you got streaming services, and technology is so radically different now. I believe that if you think about video games back in the day, if you think about how gaming system changed, and think about how fast they changed, how quickly the graphics changed, and then the type of games, everything from cartridges to CDs to even DVDs back in the day to most games being streamed online now. If you think about how the graphics changed, the gameplay changed, the dynamics of the gameplay, how much memory some games had, how big maps changed on games, how many different components were added to games, leveling systems, etc. I think that we're in the same place with DApps. I think we're going to start to see the same long term. And by the way, if you're seeing that light, there's actually a movie playing behind me on the, I don't know if you guys can hear that. Hopefully it's not too distracting. But I think we're going to see some of the same thing happening with DApps. I think it's only a matter of time before we start seeing even more impressive innovation in the DApp space. So I encourage you, whether you play in the DApp space or you watch it, if you're a cryptocurrency enthusiast, just keep an eye on the DApp space. We see the 1,000,001 dice games on the DApps and these dividend projects, et cetera, et cetera. I believe dividends eventually could go away altogether. I mean, I kind of like dividend tokens, and I hope they don't go away completely. But I do believe that ultimately we're going to see them go away altogether. And the reason they'll go away is because, or at least I'll say this, it's not going to be the primary reason to participate in a DApp. The primary reason to participate in a DApp is going to ultimately be because it's the playability. It's fun. It's unique. It's exciting. And I think right now, one of the first DApps in this space where you're going to see that, or you can see that, is probably Blaze Economy. Blaze Economy, if you go check it out, blazeeconomy.com, or even on my other videos, I don't have it on this one, but I have a link to my email subscriber base, list. If you're not on my email list, you definitely should subscribe to the email list. And for that matter, subscribe to my channel. If you're not a subscriber here and you enjoy watching my channel, listening to my content, please not only hit that like button, but please hit that subscribe button. Make sure you subscribe. Hit that bell notification icon as well. If you agree with anything that I'm saying, I don't expect you to agree with me 100%. That's why we're so different in this space. And it's the collective ideas that make this space unique. The freedom to be able to have ideas and to create anywhere from creating content to creating blockchain cryptocurrency projects. It's the common thread being technology moving forward. That is really the common thread of what we're all about in this space. But if you look at Blaze Economy right now, what's fascinating about them more than anything is that Blaze Economy is a project. It's the first project I've seen that could totally exist without any form of a dividend payment at all, because the project is playable all by itself. Sorry, it looks a little bit. The project itself is playable. You can actually, it still is a cryptocurrency game based on starting with a little bit of cryptocurrency, trying to earn more. Can you buy Blaze on the exchange and sell on the platform? You can buy Blaze on KiwiDex right now. They may be going to Tron TRX. Hang on just one moment. Just bear with me one moment.
As you may notice, we have started the ship here at Long Island at the entrance to Alaskan Channel, just about 8.5 miles from Junior Harbor.
Our engines have challenges.
It's faced with a critical medical condition, and we have contacted Juneau Coast Guard.
Wow, critical medical condition.
Fast boat to come out and collect our patient, to bring this patient urgently back to Juneau to the hospital there. So,
wow, hang on. Can you hear that? Can you guys hear this? If not, I'll tell you what's happening.
Half an hour or so, and we should be on the way.
Tell me if you guys can hear what he's saying behind me.
As of now, we have come to a complete stop here in this area. Very good conditions.
I'm going to catch you up in just a moment. Let me know if you guys can hear this.
That's going to bring our patient urgently back to the government.
I'll tell you, this is crazy.
Just keeping you updated. They should wonder why the ship has come to a complete stop. As soon as this transfer is carried out, we will resume our ways to Scandinavia and Thank you very much.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Gentlemen, if any of you are prayer people, you should pray for that person right there. So basically, we are stopped right now. I knew we had noticed we'd stopped. There's a critical emergency on board. Of course, they didn't give any details. There's a patient that is, they've contacted the Coast Guard. We're about a few miles from Juneau, 7 or 8 miles from Juneau. And they've sent out a fast boat to pick up the patient. That's brutal. I don't know what's going on. My guess is some sort of a heart attack or some sort of food allergy, potentially. Massive food allergy. But hopefully it's... So anyway, talk about a bad vacation for somebody. But what's interesting about Blaze Economy, the Blaze token, I don't know if you can buy or sell the Blaze token yet on an exchange or not. They're trying to get listed on Tron Trade. They've been in conversations. I'm not certain what the holdup is on Tron Trade. People get caught up on that. They're like, oh, I want to see it on an exchange, or I don't want an exchange because I don't want to manipulate it. Well, first of all, it's not going to get manipulated, but I don't give two rats craps about whether it gets on an exchange or not. That's irrelevant. I mean, most exchanges, I actually have an issue with exchanges because it's another form of centralization. I get why we use them because they're convenient. Centralization at this point is always more convenient than a decentralized platform. It's just like transacting in US dollars is far more convenient than transacting in cryptocurrency. But I don't necessarily love the centralization of exchanges. So I'm looking forward to the time that we're all in decentralized exchanges. But with that being said, I don't know the to answer your question. I don't know that Blaze token is on Tron Trade yet, and I personally don't care. But the Blaze token is fascinating. Yeah, the dividends are great. In fact, it's some of the best dividends and some of the most stable dividends I've received. But that doesn't matter. Ultimately, we're going to get diluted on dividends. We just are getting diluted so slow. That's why it's stable. And the reason it's diluted so slow is because there's no way to auto mine it. It's not a platform where it's about just earn massive amounts of crypto by mining as fast as you can. All the whales jump in, they mine it. You do like I've done before, where you set it to auto bet and you just let it auto bet for hours on end, and you get a bunch of tokens and you wait for the dividends, and then all of a sudden the whales leave and it's worth nothing. That's not the type of platform that it is. You have to actually play it, so therefore it causes the tokens to get mined really, really slow. I think we're around 200. We're around 200,000 tokens. I think it's 200,000 tokens out of 100 million. Like, it's just getting started. But the dividends are super stable. But again, that doesn't matter, because eventually we're going to all get diluted on the token in the long run. But the game, the Blaze Machine game, which I've demonstrated before on this channel, yeah, you can definitely get Blaze on Kiwi. But the Blaze Machine game is statistically a beatable game, and I've demonstrated on my channel before. I've got videos showing it. But it's a game that you can play. It's a multiplayer. What it is basically is a multiplayer trading simulation, and there is some random number generator used. That's what the Blaze Machine is all about. You're rolling for points, and then you sell your points. Your points have a value based off what they're worth at the current rate exchange on Blaze Economy. But that rate exchange is a cumulative rate exchange based off of everyone's rolls within the game and the buys within the game, and somewhat the sales. But most of it comes from whether they roll good or bad. So you basically roll for your points, and then you wait till you have 12 hours for the rate to go up, and the rate typically always goes up over 1.5 and higher, you're breaking even. Over 1.5, you're earning a profit. And I'm going to do a test. I was started it before I got on this cruise, and I had about a week and a half of profitability just playing Blaze Machine alone. But when I get off this cruise, I was going to try to continue it on this cruise, but it's just too hard to play on mobile. But I'm going to continue to track it, but I believe that it's fully playable, fully winnable, meaning you can mine tokens and earn Tron at the same time, and now earn dividends as well. I don't know of any other platform in the DApp space that you can play, and there's a reason to be able to play it. The dynamics to Blaze Economy as far as multiplayer and being able to be winnable, meaning there's not... The developers of Blaze Economy make their money the same way that the developers of a decentralized exchange makes their money, or even for that matter, a centralized exchange. You look at Binance. They take a percentage fee of the volume on the platform. Blaze Economy works the same way. They take basically a percentage. It's like a 2% fee based off the volume of the machine game. So it's not like you're playing against a house, if you will. You're playing against other players. The rate is determined by what other players do in the game. And the reality is, it's just like trading. A lot of people will get nervous and they'll sell their points at a loss because they're afraid that they're not going to see the number they want to see. They got 4 hours left before their timer's up. They're like, I'm going to go ahead and sell. It's at a 1. That's great. They can sell at a 1 all day long. A 1 just means they're selling at a 5% loss. So if you have patience and you're able to wait, in my experience so far playing, if you have the Telegram trade alert set up, you're going to sell, and you're going to be able to sell at profit. And in my experience so far, more often than not, I've been forced to sell before, and when you have to take a loss a little bit when you sell. But most often, as long as you're selling at a profit, more than 50% of the time, you should be a net positive player on Blaze Machine. And that's the first thing that I've ever seen. That dynamic, the only other place where you can have a platform where you can have a multiplayer platform where people there's winners and losers, but it's possible over time to be a net winner would be something like Texas Hold'em poker. That's the only thing. So Blaze Economy has a similar dynamic. Not that it's anything like Texas Hold'em, because it's not. It's more of a trading platform. But what makes it interesting is that you're able to play it, but it's more of a multiplayer game. You're not just playing a casino game. You're not playing like blackjack. You're not rolling your roulette. It's a multi. Do me a favor, ladies and gentlemen, smash that like button if you haven't done so already. But it's a multiplayer game, and you can actually earn a profit. Now, I actually think Blaze is in its infancy, and I can talk about Blaze in depth, and I can do another video later this week to mention Blaze, and I'll do another video. If you guys want to see more of Alaska, let me know. I'll definitely show you Skagway if I get a chance, and different places. We're gonna go through some sort of like glacier field at some point, which would be kind of cool to make a video of, and it'd be a cool backdrop to talk about crypto and watch my vacation at the same time. But there's a lot of I think Blaze is going to develop a lot. I've seen several people get hold of me and they're like, oh, I got this idea for this game and that game, and I've sent it to the developer. That doesn't matter. I mean, some of these games, I think people have got the wrong idea on what they're wanting to see Blaze to be. Ultimately, it's got my strategy. Side Hustle said, what is your strategy for Blaze? I've got a couple of strategies. The simple one is roll and only sell above 1.0, 1.05 and higher. But Side Hustle, if you go back to my channel and look at one of my last videos, even the video before this, or look at any of my videos that aren't live more recently, and you'll see that I talk about I got a newsletter, or I forget if I call it a newsletter. Basically, you can subscribe to my email list, the passive cryptocurrency, and on that email list, I cover several things. I cover CryptoTab browser, and I cover Blaze Economy. Starting with the second email on that list, I started talking about Blaze Economy, and I basically start breaking down my strategy one by one, because I have multiple components to my strategy for Blaze. And my strategy, there's a lot of strategies out there. Some of them are focused on maximizing dividend earnings. My strategy is kind of a combination of making plays that allow you to mine dividends, but ultimately it's about earning Tron, not earning Tron from the game. You will automatically, by playing the game, get tokens and get dividends. But I think learning to play the game and earning Tron from the game is the best strategy overall. And again, you can just go subscribe to my email list and get that strategy. But the basic strategy is no matter where you roll, try to sell above 1.05. But there's strategies about what to do when the rate's low, what to do when it's really high, and when to do nothing but just watch and kind of wait for the rate. Because I think there are times when the best thing to do is just to kind of hang out and wait for the rate to move a little bit. There's another component to the game called Kings. There's some times you can play Kings. I think overall Kings is not the best strategy for most people. I don't think most people want to play Kings. As far as earning Tron, now, if you're trying to play the dividend game, then Blaze can be a way. The Kings game can be a way to earn a lot of Blaze. But I wasn't trying to make this all about Blaze Economy. What I'm saying is that I think they're just currently the first step in an interesting evolution of the dApp space. I think we're going to see more games, more dApps similar to Blaze Economy in the fact of that they can be playable in spite of mining for tokens. The real value in Blaze, and I don't know if all the players realize it yet, I think the real value in Blaze is not mining tokens. I think it's the fact that it's a game. The reason to hold that token and to earn dividends is because I think it's going to be earning for a long time unless the developer screws something up, because it is so much fun to play and it is playable without mining for dividends. Like, you can actually beat the game, you can actually earn Tron. And again, I'm going to prove this when I get back. I'm going to start putting up weekly updates on. I'm going to start with a certain basic bankroll, and I'm going to start showing I'm going to do my best to show my earnings from week to week, in spite of, without dividends. Like, I'll show you what I earn total, and then I'll show you what I earn without dividends to show you that, I can in fact grow my Tron by playing the game, because I fully believe that's possible, and I'm going to attempt to prove it to you. I mean, I think the math dictates that it's 100% possible. I say that I believe it's possible, and it's amazing how many regular players I've heard say, "Oh, I don't think it's possible." I'm thinking, my God, just do the math. Now, there's a few players that are hip to it. Like, I've heard them talk, and they're like, "Shh, don't talk about that," because they think it's going to be harder to win. I don't think it's going to be harder to win, because there's a part of it. It's a trading simulation. I mean, how do you trade stocks and win? Buy low, sell high. Everybody knows that. But there's a whole emotional component to trading stocks. The difference in Blaze Economy is stocks don't always revert back to an average. They don't always. When Blaze Economy, the average or the median price, if you will, is 1. Well, the price always comes back. If it goes too high, it eventually always comes back to one. If it goes really low, it eventually always comes back to one. That's a dynamic that you don't get with trading stocks. Trading stocks can go up and up and up and up and up and down, down and down and down. Trading Bitcoin can go up and up and up and up and down and down and down and down. Trading Tron, same thing, right? It can go up indefinitely. There's nothing that says that the price has to stop. Same thing with when the price drops. There's nothing that says that it has to drop until it gets to zero. So Blaze Economy, I told you it's a trading simulation, but that's one of the dynamics that make it so unique, and I think potentially so beatable and viable is that the price just basically stays in a range around one every several times in a day. Probably anywhere from 10 times to 20 times in a day. It's around one. Absolutely. Let's see. So what's? Sorry, I thought I saw a comment. I don't see it now. Okay, so but just keep watching. I know it's gonna be interesting. Blaze is fascinating in and of itself, so I don't know where it's gonna go. But I think for me, when I saw Blaze come out, and I didn't understand it at first because I thought it was a little bit confusing. Once you understand it, it's crazy simple. Once you understand it, you're like, wait a minute, how did I think this was confusing? I think they need to continue to simplify it, and I think any new developments need to be simple. A lot of the developments I've heard about that people propose for games, they're quite complex. I think that's fine, but we need to grow the player base, and in order to grow the player base, it's got to continue to be, it can't get any more complicated, any more difficult. So I think there's going to be, I think Blaze Economy is not the only thing to come out. I think there will be other things coming out in the space. By the way, I recently got asked to be the chief marketing officer for a company, a cryptocurrency project that is, they wanted to compete with Blaze Economy. And I refused. Basically, I've got my own project, not my own projects, my own life, but my own business, my own projects, my own life that I'm dealing with to have to take on a cryptocurrency project. Chief marketing, being a marketing officer for a startup company is something that I would like to do at some point in the future, but it's nothing that I'm looking to do today, that's for sure. At all. And if I was going to do it, it would have to be something totally unique. I don't want to be a chief marketing officer for a company that is going to, or a project that's basically going to, I don't want to say rip off or be a clone, but they need to be very unique. But I wouldn't want to take that on at this point in time. But it just showed me that there are people that are looking at that project and they are either going to try to clone it, which I think that's going to be complicated, or they're going to try to, hopefully, if they were going to do anything, they would try to improve upon the concept. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. But I think there's something else coming along. I would venture to guess within a year we're going to have something far different than Blaze Economy. But at the same time, be playable and where people want to play it, regardless of earning dividends from the token or not. See, that's the key. People want to be able to play it without the dividends. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this stream has went on long enough. I've sat here and talked. This is the kind of stuff that bounces around in my head often when I read and I look at forums and I look at Telegram and I look at different news sites. This is the kind of stuff that I think about often in my head. So I've been on this cruise and I've had a lot of time just to think about this, and then I just wanted to get it out there and talk about it a little bit. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you've got any guys that love to talk to you about what's going on in the cryptocurrency space, I'm enthusiastic about this space. It's really more of a hobby for me, but it's at the same time it's kind of a passion. I say this often, I really believe it, but we are on this is cutting edge stuff. Like, this technology is at its infancy, and there's so much to talk about in this space. It's really hard to have people to talk to. RNG can and will wreck you. What are you talking about? You're talking about the RNG side hustle. You're talking about the RNG in Blaze Machine? You need to go take a look at my strategy. The RNG is irrelevant to your strategy in a Blaze Machine. The RNG cannot wreck you on Blaze Machine. Simply because as long as there's a volume moving the rate, and maybe you're talking about a lot of platforms out there, but anyway, there's a lot of platforms that rely solely on RNG. The RNG is just one component that helps add randomness to the rate price. And Side Hustle may not have understood what you were talking about. But the cruise has been great. Thank you, Big Smoke. Appreciate it. Everyone take care out there. And stay safe. Guard that crypto. We are on Cutting edge space, ladies and gentlemen. We're the pioneers in this space. The fact that you're here right now today, one of these days we'll all be like, remember when people wanted government to come in and regulate cryptocurrency? Remember when we were still dealing with those paper dollars? Remember that? That's where we're going to be at one day. And you're here first. That's the most important part. I love working with you. I love talking to you. I love interacting with you. I love watching this space. I love when some of you like Big Smoke Crypto. I see him often on in other places, other YouTube channels, and other comment sections. And I see him in the DAP space when he comments because he keeps the same name, just like I keep Crypto Wealth often. And I love seeing you all in other places, in other spaces, just experimenting, just learning, just playing in this space. It's so awesome to recognize that, we're all kindred spirits. And I'm on this cruise, and there's a lot of people that I know. This cruise, by the way, is part of work for me, but it was also kind of a networking event in a lot of ways. But a lot of the people, I can't even talk cryptocurrency because they don't get it. The only thing they get is, oh, Bitcoin went up in value. Oh, Bitcoin went down. Oh, maybe they know that Bitcoin's headed back up again. Maybe. But I don't think most of us have people in our lives that get cryptocurrency to the way that we get it. And I enjoy being here with all of you, and I enjoy being on this journey with you. This is cryptocurrency. Have a great night, everyone.